By this time of winter, I'm absolutely itching to get sowing again. And while spring may still be several weeks off, there are many things that can be sown right now to give ourselves a head start. Let me show you. If you love a little spice in your life, then chili peppers are a must. I try to grow a modest selection each year. Now the secret with chili peppers is to give them a really long growing season, and they especially need that in a cooler climate like mine. So this season I'm going to major on Tabasco chili peppers. Now I absolutely love Tabasco sauce on anything from scrambled eggs to a punchy Bloody Mary. And I'd also like trying to make my own version of this fiery hot sauce, so I will need plenty of these fiery fruits to make that happen. I'll hope to include that in a future video, so do watch out for that one. But before all that, we need to sow our seeds. And for that, I'm going to make my own chili pepper seed starting mix, and it uses equal parts coconut or coir fibre, lovely light stuff, and then over here, a peat-free all-purpose potting mix. Now peat-free is important because it's going to drain a little bit better, and that's so important for this heat-loving crop that likes a lovely free draining soil. And then the coir, which I'm adding, will further help with that. It creates a lovely open light texture, and that will just help with drainage and really help our seedlings to get off to a flying start. All peppers need good, steady warmth to germinate. So to help with that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start them off indoors on a heat mat. And to make the most of space, because it's quite limited, I'm going to sow them into a pot first of all. Then once the seedlings are up, I will carefully separate them out and pop them into their own pots. What I'm going to do here is just take a bit of time to pick up the seeds individually and space them apart. Nicely like that. Just take your time. Now the reason for doing this is that the seedlings can grow on just a bit before you need to separate them out, and it will make separating them out a lot easier because they won't be so intertwined. And now let's just get them covered with a little bit more of our potting mix. And then finally, to fire the starting pistol, I'm going to water them. So I'm going to pop this onto a tray with a humidity dome over the top, and then pop this onto a heat mat set to the early to mid 70s Fahrenheit, or sort of 21 to 24 Celsius. Now a heat mat isn't a huge investment and can be picked up for a little bit more than a couple of bags of potting mix. And given the dramatically improved results you will get from it, I reckon it's worth the investment. If you don't have a humidity dome or heat mat, then you can just use a bit of clear plastic secured onto the pot like that. Now this will go into the warmest spot in the house, somewhere like a warm windowsill. Then once the seedlings have come up, I will carefully tease them apart and then pot them up into their own individual pots to grow on in a warm place. I love onions, and I find that growing them from seeds give better results than growing them from sets. And that's because by growing them from seed, they are much less likely to bolt or flower prematurely. You'll also get a good chance of getting really good sized bulbs, especially if you pick a variety known for its plus-sized bulbs, which is what I'm going for today. Now I've chosen a variety called Globo, and the seed packet proudly proclaims it's a regular prize winner. So even if I don't get the fullest sized bulbs, I'm pretty much guaranteed to get some decent sized bulbs. I'm going to sow them into these smaller plug trays here, and that's because the seedlings are quite compact and should be out into their final positions long before they fill these up. And I'm just using my all-purpose potting mix, and I'm just sieving or screening it to get a nice fine texture for the rather small onion seeds. With the plug tray filled, you can then just push in the potting mix a bit to create a nice firm mix for the seedlings to grow into. Don't worry about this, it's not going to compact it too much. It will give plenty more good stuff for the roots to grow into and explore. Now then, if I was after the very biggest bulbs to take home the silverware from the local garden or produce show, I would now sow one seed into each plug, or maybe two, and then thin out, removing the weakest seedling in each to leave just one in each plug. I then maybe plant them 6 inches or 15 centimetres apart in each direction to ensure the biggest possible results. However, I'm not after really big bulbs, I'm just after medium-sized bulbs for my smaller family. So I'm going to take a different tack and sow little pinches of seeds, which will then produce a cluster of seedlings to plant out exactly as they are. So what I'm going to go for here is between about 5 and up to 7 seeds per plug tray. And this will give me a little cluster of seedlings, as I say, to plant out as they are. The other advantage of this method is that there's less thinning out to do because you're just planting them as they are. And you're going to get many more bulbs, albeit slightly smaller ones, in the area that you've got. So it's quite an efficient way of growing. There we are now, just to cover them lightly over with a touch more of the potting mix. Now, I don't want to disturb these seeds when I water them because they're quite small and they're just under the surface. So this is why I do use this pump action hand sprayer that you see me sometimes use. It gives a nice fine spray without disturbing the potting mix. You just go over it several times and it gives just the right amount of water, really. Onions don't need a lot of heat to germinate, but they will get going if the temperature is a bit warmer. So I'm going to bring these indoors to a cool room temperature just to get them started. Something around about 55 to 60 Fahrenheit or 14 degrees Celsius, thereabouts. So an unheated room. And then once they're up, they'll come back out here to carry on growing. If you don't have a greenhouse, then a cold frame would work really well for growing on your onions, or indeed anywhere protected from the worst of the cold. Now, before we move on to our next vegetable, let me show you these guys. These are the same variety of onions already germinated, and the idea here is I'm going to transfer them into their own plugs and grow them on individually to see if I can get some really big bulbs. And it'll be quite fun to contrast growing these individually for big bulbs with my multi-sown onions here. Fava or broad beans are some of the very hardiest beans that will give some of the earliest pods of all. Now, tradition is to sow them in the autumn to then overwinter and then start growing away again in early spring. However, I have been caught out a few times by a sudden cold snap that has killed them off. The trouble is that any milder weather will lead to them growing just too quickly, producing soft, sappy growth that is then vulnerable to really frigid conditions. With increasingly unpredictable winters, I reckon it's just a safer bet to delay sowing until later in winter. And by sowing now, I should have shorter but stockier, sturdier seedlings ready to go out in about 5 to 6 weeks. I absolutely love sowing bean seeds. They're just so big and plump, like little gold coins, so tactile and so full of riches. There we are, all the beans are laid out onto plug trays of just potting mix, and I'm going to go through and sow them about a couple of inches or 5 centimetres deep using nature's dibber, your finger. Now, if I had really well draining soil, meaning it doesn't sit wet and saturated after rain, then I could try sowing these directly outside. But I reckon it's worth sowing into plug trays or pots to get yourself a bit of a head start, to protect the seeds from mice, because they can be a bit of a nuisance, and just to stop them rotting away if it does get too wet. And these nice chunky sized plug trays should give them plenty of space to grow until it's time to plant them out. The seedlings will get planted once they reach about 2 to 3 inches or say 8 centimetres tall, and they will go out about 8 inches or 20 centimetres apart in both directions. Now, they'll need some form of support because they do grow a bit tall, but then they should start flowering from late spring, and then the first delicious pods will soon be hot on their heels. Brassicas, that's any vegetable in the cabbage family, are a staple in any vegetable garden, including mine. Now, I really love kale, broccoli, and to sow today, cauliflower, and of course cabbage. And I'm going to be sowing them into these individual pots to save space early on, and then once they've popped up, I will then transfer them into their own little plugs. So let's start with this, a quick growing early variety of summer cabbage called Greyhound. And what a superb name for a speedy pointed cabbage like this. And sowing's really straightforward. I'm just going to take a little pinch of my seeds and then sow them nice and thinly across the top of my potting mix here. And then just cover them back over. And now the same for my summer heading cauliflowers. And I'm going to be growing these, or germinating them at least, inside. Again, a cool room temperature of 55 to 60 Fahrenheit or around 14 Celsius is ideal. So I'll pop them next to my onions and then they'll come back out here to grow on as soon as they're up. Right, now let me show you some seedlings of brassicas I've already got growing, just to show you how I'm going to grow them on. So I've got some cauliflower here and some greyhound cabbage, which I managed to drop on their way out here, so they're looking a bit floppy, but I'll show you the next stage of life, and that's to get them into their own plug trays here individually. So I'm just going to carefully jump and tease apart the little seedlings like this, and hold them by the leaves, like that. And then carefully tease apart each seedling, and that's got a really good little root system. And then it's simply dibber a hole with your stick and then feed the roots down like that. You can set it a little bit lower. And there we go. There's our first seedling. Let's get the others done. There we go, looking good. Now, I'm going to let these grow on, and then once they get to about 3 to 4 inches or up to 10 centimetres tall, and I can see the roots poking out of the bottom of the plugs, then I know it's time to transplant them outside into their final positions. Now the cabbages are going to go about 30 centimetres or 1 foot apart each way, and the cauliflowers a little bit more generous at around 20 inches or 50 centimetres apart each way. And they're going to go into rich soil that's been kind of enriched with a bit of well-rotted manure. They'll get a lovely sunny spot in the morning, but it's a little bit shaded in the afternoon, but that's fine for brassicas, which can cope well with a little dappled shade. Spinach made my recent list of 7 must-grow crops, and if you missed that video, I'll include a link to it down below so you can check it out. Now this delicious and versatile veggie is one of those cool season leafy greens that does surprisingly well from an early start, and here's how. Spinach can be sown directly where it's to grow, but even under cloches or a warming row cover, it's still just a bit cold at this time of year, so I'm going to sow them into plug trays. Now I've got this bit of potting mix here that I got from those cabbages that we potted on, and I'm going to use it to fill the bottom of these. Brassicas germinate so quickly, those ones were just 10 days old, that they won't have touched this bit of potting mix. So I may as well use it rather than just discarding it. And then I can go over the top with more of my all-purpose potting mix sieved on to give a fine texture. I'm going to sow about 2 to 3 seeds into each plug, and they can go out as a little tiny cluster of seedlings if they all come out. Now I love starting spinach off in plugs like this because it avoids the kind of dangers of slugs early on. By the time these go out, they'll be a reasonable size and a little bit more tolerant to the rasping attentions of those slugs. And by getting an early start like this, I'm also going to get a lot more pickings because spinach tends to flower or bolt from about midsummer. So by starting early, they've obviously got a longer period to kind of pick those leaves. I could leave these here to germinate in their own time, but I'm just going to bring them indoors purely to germinate to speed the whole process up by about half a week or so. Once those spinach have grown on a bit, they'll be planted out in maybe 5 to 6 weeks in early spring, and I'll pop them into soil enriched with compost, and they'll go out about 20 centimetres, that's 8 inches apart. Well, I am so pleased to have got this little lot started. It feels great to have made such a strong start already. And as a thank you for staying right the way to the end of the video, I would like to give you something, the free abridged version of my book. It's over 100 pages long and is crammed full of practical projects and fun ideas to get your growing season off to a really strong start. Just follow the QR code or the link over here to grab yours. I'll catch you next time.